An Eventful Life respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we produce this episode on, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Bunurong Boonwurrung peoples of the Eastern Kulin, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
Hello and welcome to An Eventful Life. Would you please welcome my co-host, Mr. Shane Buzzer. Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm good, Brad. How you doing?
Yeah, very, very well. Hey, we've just finished recording the final episode of our first season. Can you believe an idea in a bar has turned into what we've just witnessed?
It sounds like a joke when two guys and a girl walked into a bar, I should say.
Yes.
On this occasion, Lindsay, well played. But yeah, and here we are, and the studio has had, event superstars come in and out of it every week for however long we've been recording, and bang, done.
Unbelievable. So, and it's funny because we set out, as stories of the event industry. That's initially what we set out for this podcast to be about. But it's not just about events, yeah. It's turned into, it's about people's lives, and how they've lived them and how intriguing and diverse and insightful they've been.
Well, their world, it's stories about their world and not just the professional world. And you know what? That's what people actually want to hear. They want to hear how people have overcome whatever it is they've overcome, or gotten to where they got, or even in our case, arrived in Melbourne or the country. That's what I've loved. Some of the stories of making their way to Melbourne from wherever it is in the world has been awesome. So
totally. I was very surprised at how many people that are now based here. I mean, we talk about a multicultural city here in Melbourne, and where we sort of focused a lot of this from initially, but they've all arrived from different parts of the world. But, and most people never set out to work in the event industry. They just seem to fall into it, a bit like us in some ways, and they've loved it, and now they're immersed in it, and they've built their careers from it.
Yeah, and look, you got to have a certain type of personality, which is a lot of industries really. You got to be kind of programmed a certain way, and in the events world especially, you got to be flexible, adaptable, and some of the messaging that for me came across was just really reinforcing, that it's hard work, sacrificing, a bit of risk and a bit of luck, and all these things. That's what kind of creates the opportunities for growth, and how they've I guess gotten to where they are and continue to. And again, that's any industry, but it's great to hear it in ours, the events industry.
Totally. And I think it's probably one of the things that stood out to me is very much about, that diversity of skill set, and how many of them are not finished or done with where they're at yet, either. They're continuously evolving themselves, and they've been able to translate those skills or learn something and apply it to a different area of the industry and grown in that part, and just been so adaptable. And I think that's probably one of the greatest traits, that no matter what these guests are, and there's such a diverse range of them that we've got coming up, that they have all been able to adapt to different scenarios throughout their careers.
And some of it was because they wanted to, some was because they just had to, really.
Yep.
But as you say, they've just rolled with the punches, so to speak, and now looking to further develop themselves. But also think about some of the stories that we heard now, which I reckon if we did this podcast 5-6 years ago would have been very different. And by that I mean like the focus on, or the evolution, if you will. I know it's a big word for me, but evolution of how to manage time and mental health and all those elements, which of course are so important to everyone, and as they should be. But I just don't think that would have been touched on as much 5 years ago in this type of podcast. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally. I think the word balance comes to mind.
Yeah.
The amount of people that have now worked out a balance in their careers and their lives, and particularly, those that have maybe had longer careers and stuff, and they've started with, that real work hard mentality, which is a great trait, but then they've worked out, hang on a second, I don't need to work 20 hours, and there's different ways I can do things. And they've just, again, I'll go back to adapt, but, very much that balancing a juggle, which I think is becoming more and more prevalent in the industry moving forward.
It is, and also let's not forget that we're all busier too. So we can sit here and say, there's balance and there's focus on mental health, blah, blah, blah. And great, it's awesome, as there should be. But we're all busier, we're all so much more accessible. But as you say, it was more hearing the stories of how the different guests cope with it, how they manage it, what do they do to break it up or keep themselves mentally fit, if you will. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I think it was, the other great part for me was the diversity in it. It was, we talked to producers, we talked to event managers, we talked to caterers, we talked to entertainers, and on and on. Security.
Yeah.
There's just different topics that we that we got so ingrained into that, things that we love. The security one's a great conversation that I'm really looking forward to. It's, something that I didn't think I'd be that overly interested in, but it turned out to be one of our most insightful conversations. And there's so much to sort of go from, guest speakers and founders and directors of businesses and people that work in them, and large and big and small. So really excited about what's in front of us.
Hopefully the listeners love it too. I mean, that's what it's all about. We want people to, jump on and listen. So yeah.
Hey, let's get into it, and let's roll into season 1, and hopefully there's many more to come, and really looking forward to it.
That's it.